John?
John did pick me up. We had a successful trip over. John picked me up in New Orleans. Nobody drank while we were there. He and I stayed sober the whole time and drove back over. And I like New Orleans. I'm a drunk. So I would... It has all the vices right there that I like to do, you know. I'm glad that John had the people that were new or attending their first Roundup stand-up, because you're in for an experience that I know you won't forget. My name is John Allred, and I am an alcoholic. It's open meeting. Well, we have Al-Anons here. Well, that's good. They need to be here, you know. And you won't want to miss... I've attended a few Al-Anon deals, and Carol's a friend of mine speaking tomorrow morning. You won't want to miss that. I go to a couple now and then. I get this thought, keeps repeating, okay, that's where the women are, so I go. And I got to tell you that I've quit. I was out there. I was out in California, and I was attending. They had this Al-Anon luncheon at this conference, and so I went. Thought there'd be some women there to see and meet, and there were a lot of women there. And I'm listening to the gal, I'll keep her anonymity, she's from Canada, tell her story. She's talking about stabbing her husband in the back. And she's sharing that with her sponsor, and her sponsor told her she tried to suffocate her husband. And I'm looking around the room, all the women are going, I thought, I'll stick with the alcoholic women, thank you. You know, it's amazing. It was a weird conference. You know, it was weird out there. I'm sitting out there. They had this big mall attached to the convention deal. And so I'm out there in the mall. I'm having some yogurt or something, and I'm watching. And it's Saturday afternoon. Here came this couple, and they were from the convention. They still had their name badges on. Punk rockers. I don't know if they got those out here or not. You've seen them on TV. The guy had a purple spike on his hair going this way, and he had a blonde spike going this way, and a red spike going this way, and he's walking with his girlfriend, and they're wearing stuff like I used to wear under the bridge. I mean, you know. and I'm watching, and right next to where I'm sitting is this sunglass boutique, right? So they come over there, and they're looking at some sunglasses. The guy puts these sunglasses on, and his girlfriend says, "Take those off. They make you look stupid." It was just distorted perception of reality. That's all it is. And we're not the only ones with that problem. Right next to that boutique is this earring boutique, right? They sell earrings. Big sign in the window. Ears pierced while you wait. I mean, what's the alternative, right? You gotta drop off your ears, come back and get them. I mean, Jesus. And they got the damnedest signs. We got a place in... Well, it's an adult. We're adults here. They got a store in Dallas. It's a condom boutique. They call this place Condoms to Go. I guess that means you can't take and use them there. Just weird stuff going on, you know. Distorted perception of reality. I got that distorted perception of reality. But that's not my fault. No. I'm an adult child of non-alcoholics. Okay. I mean, I got nobody to blame. You know, I did all the drinking by myself. I grew up in a very normal, healthy environment. Nobody drank. Dad didn't drink. Brother didn't drink. Sister didn't drink. I didn't drink growing up. Went to school. Got out of school. Got married my senior year in college, like I was supposed to. Got out, went in the insurance business. Didn't drink. Finally, I'm hanging out. Had a buddy. He drank. His name was Stuart. Stuart drank. He liked drinking the bars. I liked to go down. I'd go down to the bars with Stuart, hang out, and drink Coke in the bar. He'd drink whatever he drank. I never paid attention. Love the bar. Love you. Go down there and you could just be somebody else in the bar. And I didn't drink. Finally, when my second child was born, Stuart called me up and congratulated me and said, well, we're going to celebrate. So I had my first drunk. God, it was a great drunk. This was in Salt Lake City, Utah, and you got to be a member of a private club in Salt Lake doing a drinking. So we go out to this private club called the Winery, it's right across from where the Salt Palace is. Go down these steps, walk in, and man, the lights were flashing. They had a live band going. There were women there, and I just drank whatever they put in front of me. I have no idea what I drank. They'd bring a light-colored drink over with a cherry in it. I just drank it. Next drink, dark-colored drink. Got a twist, and I just drink it down. I just drank whatever they put in front. It was a great drunk. Great drunk, right? Danced with 2 lesbians that night. Well, they were out there dancing together, you know. I thought, probably want me to join them. Went out there, and the 3 of us danced, and then they left together, and there I was alone. You know what? No rejection. I just drunk. I just went and sat down, drank the next drink sitting in front of me. Got up the next morning, no hangover. Felt pretty good. Called up Stuart on the phone, and I said, my God, I had a ball last night. He said, yeah, you did. You had a good time. I said, Stuart, let me ask you a question. Do you think you might go have a drink tonight? He said, I hadn't thought about it. I'll probably stop by and have one. I said, what time are you going to do that? He said, well, I have to work till 3 o'clock this afternoon. I said, well, why don't I meet you about 3:30? So he's fine. I meet him at 3:30 in another place called the Speakeasy, private club. And I remember telling Stuart, man, I don't like the way it tastes, but I like to get drunk. What can I drink that'll get me that buzz that I don't have to taste the alcohol? He says, I got the drink for you. So waitress came by. He ordered me a CMF. CMF came in a great big goblet. It had Kahlua, Galliano, vodka, brandy, and cream all blended up. Tastes like a chocolate malt. It really did. CMF stood for Creamy Mother something or other. I'm not sure. You drink those and you just get drunk. It was great. About a week after that first drunk, I'm down at this place. It wasn't a private club. It was a beer bar. I want to be honest about the place. It wasn't a high-class beer bar. It was a topless joint. And it wasn't a high-class topless joint. The Joker Club had one dancer in the whole place. And you had to be drunk to appreciate her. I mean, it was just terrible. But I went down there about 11:30 to check out the lunch craft. And bumped into 2 buddies I grew up with. Price and Boat were down there. And they said, let's buy you a beer. I said, no, I didn't drink a lot of beer. You had to drink a lot of it to get drunk, and then I burped a lot when I drank it, so I didn't drink a lot of beer. I said, no. I said, let's go get us a real drink. And they said, well, we don't have any memberships to those private clubs. I said, I got memberships. Hell, I've been drinking a week, you know. Doesn't take us long to find out what we need to do to get it. And so we go down there to take them down to the Speakeasy, and they didn't know what to drink. And I said, I know what to drink. So the waitress came by. I ordered them CMS. They liked them, too. They did. We used to start meeting down there at 3 o'clock every day, drink those CMS. Waitress see us coming, they called us the malt shop crew when we walked in down there, you know. I was having fun. And then about a week after that, Stuart grabbed me, and he said, man, I got to teach you how to drink. It's embarrassing to go out drinking with you. And I said, well, what am I doing wrong? He said, well, ain't anything wrong. It's just what you're drinking, man. He says, it's embarrassing. Here we go down there. We're playing this little macho role. We work hard to get the women over to the table. And then you order that tutti fruit shit. He said, it's embarrassing. And they bring it. It's got an umbrella in it. You know. That's not the image we want to portray. I said, well, what do I drink? He said, I'll show you. So we go out to this another place called the Black Bull. He says, now pay attention. Waitress comes by. He says, we'll have a couple of Black Jack Up with the water back. Sounds like my kind of drink. You know, Black Jack Up, water back. So waitress brings her drink. Now keep in mind, I'm used to drinking these big goblets. I was never so disappointed in my life. Waitress brings a little shot glass with some dark stuff in it and a glass of water. I turned to Stuart and I says, my God, we got to mix our own. They want you to mix our drinks for us here? He says, no, we don't mix this. He picked it up and he said, this is Cadillac stuff. This is American sour mash sipping whiskey. I said, oh. Well, we were supposed to sip on that? He said, no. We guzzle this. Sip your water. Made sense to me. Guzzle sipping whiskey. So he said, now, John, he said, when you go to do this, don't breathe. So I'm watching him. He picked it up. He swirled it around, smelled it, downed it, sat down, took a sip of his water. I picked mine up. I don't know what I'm looking at. It's dark, you know. I swirled it around. Then I remembered not to breathe, and I downed it. And I remember tonight, man, my throat got all warm and tingly, you know. Went down my chest. My chest got all warm, tingly. Hit my stomach, man. My stomach got all warm and tingly. Went down my legs. I turned to Stuart and I said, let's get us another. He said, no, we got to sip our water. Well, see, that was my problem. I never learned to sip water. If I learned to sip water, I wouldn't need to come to these damn meetings. I'd have been okay. You know? But see, I want the second one more than the first. And I like the third one more than the second. I like to drink to get drunk. I never had that minute, that period of social drinking where you got to get a glass of wine or a cocktail and walk around the cocktail party and be... I never was sociable. I like to drink to get drunk. And I did that. 3 weeks after that first drunk, I remember pulling up in front of the liquor store at 10 in the morning because they opened at 10, and going in there and buying 3 little mini bottles of vodka, like the kind you get on the airplane. They told me you couldn't smell vodka. So I'd go out in the car at 10 and crack those lids and suck them out of there as quick as I could. And that's hard to do that. The hole's only that big. You get a hernia sucking on those things, you know. Drink those 3 smoking cigarettes and I'd be okay to go to work. And my life's changed immediately. I'm immediately starting to have things happen to me. People are starting to tell me that I'm drinking too much. And then it was, you got a drinking problem. And then they started telling me I'm an alcoholic. And this is like within a year after I started drinking. And it used to really bug me. You know, because when they tell you, then they say, you're an alcoholic. There's no correct response to that accusation. You say, am not. They say, denial. First thing about alcoholics is denial. And if you say, yeah, you're probably right, hell, you got to go to AA. I mean, so you can't say yes, you can't deny it, and you can't accept it. You're just screwed. The only thing you can do, and I did this, the only thing you can do is beat them to the punch. So I'd be laying there in bed hungover. My wife would come in, and I'd look up at her, and I'd say, honey, you're an alcoholic. Let her deny it. You know, she never drank. I mean, not even one. You know, just... They'd tell me I'm an alcoholic, and then I'd say, well, what's an alcoholic? How do you know if you're an alcoholic? I mean, can you take a medical test? Can you take blood out of my arm, run it through a big blood analysis machine, and come out and say, yep, we've analyzed your blood, and you have alcoholism? Can't do that. Well, how do you know? I mean, God forbid you misdiagnose that. Could you imagine not having a drink for 20 years and then finding out you're not alcoholic? Oh, that would make you mad, wouldn't it? You know, the only people that makes mad are alcoholics. People who aren't alcoholics say, well, I don't drink that much anyway. But it'd make me mad. Can you take x-rays? Can you run me through a brain scan machine? You know, take 1,000 pictures, put them up on the wall and say, okay, Mr. Allred, see here, see that dot, base of your brain. You got alcoholism. No, can't do that. How do you know if you're an alcoholic? So they give you that test. 20 questions or however many questions are. You know, I want you to know I could take that test and pass it. Because see, I like to lie. I mean, I lie without even thinking about it. They'd say, well, that question says, does alcohol cause you any problems? No. It didn't. Never did. Now, I had a lot of problems. Alcohol wasn't one of them. Okay? Had problems with that wife I was married to. It was philosophical. We should have talked about it before we got married. But we didn't. We just got married. She thought that when you got married, you ought to be married, 7 days a week. All week long. I don't like to be married that way. I kind of think you got to be married 5 days a week. Separate on Friday. Party all weekend. Go home Monday. It's a philosophical problem. Caused me a lot. Had a problem with the boss. He thought that when you work for him, you ought to work during the day. I'm a night person. Function better at night. I had a problem with the banker. He kept trying to explain to me, no. Put the money in before you write the check. And they get real picky on a couple days. Just get real picky on that. I had a problem with the police. I don't know what I'd done to offend them, but they were pissed. I was thoroughly convinced they were out to get me. They had my picture and license plate on every dashboard in Salt Lake City. Because every time they see me, they arrest me. It was just incredible, the persecution I went through. I could be doing nothing wrong. I'm just walking down the road doing nothing wrong. If a cop drives by, sees me, he arrests me. This is incredible how that happened. It happened to me. I'm walking down the road, not hurting anybody. I'm just walking down the road. Cop drove by, saw me, arrested me. Oh, okay, it was 3:30 in the morning. But it's a free country. You ought to be able to walk down any street in America you want to walk down at 3:30 in the morning. I got arrested. There was a bad rainstorm. I didn't have a coat, but you could walk in the rain if you choose to. 3:30 without a raincoat. I got arrested. I asked the cop when he was handcuffing me why I stopped. Okay, I had a gash in my head. I had blood running down my head. But that wasn't my fault. I had been in a cab earlier, told the cabbie to stop, wanted to get out. The guy didn't stop fast enough. I jumped out of that moving cab, hit my head on the ground as I rolled there. Cop said, stop, see if you're okay. Found out who I was, arrested me. Just a bad... See, because they got this other deal. It's getting bad now, worse now, because they put them in cars and everything. They put them on computers. I don't know if they got them here in Mississippi or not, but they're called warrants. And they put those warrants on those computers, and then they don't even bother to come look for us anymore, because they know we'll show up somewhere. So I always have these warrants out there. The worst problem I had was timing. My timing was off. And when you got a timing problem, you got a serious problem. Because you don't know whether your timing's off and you need to speed up doing what you're doing, or whether your timing's off and you need to slow down doing what you're doing. So you don't need to know whether to speed up or slow. I'd get stopped by the cops, and I'd think, damn, 5 minutes. If I'd have just been 5 minutes sooner, that cop would not have been on the corner. I'd have got by there, and I'd have been okay. And then as his hand come, I think, well, wait a minute. Maybe I should have been 5 minutes later, and then he would have been by the corner, and I'd have been okay. So when your timing's off, you don't know whether to speed up or slow. So I'm sitting in the bar, and I'd think, I wonder if it's time for me to go. I always stayed, I did. I had all these problems. Alcohol wasn't one of them. It really wasn't. In fact, alcohol was the solution to a lot of those things. Because when I drink alcohol, it's just like a little nuclear explosion that just explodes, and all of a sudden I'm okay. I'm happy, joyous, and free. You take alcohol out of me, and I'm restless, irritable, and discontent. And I need something to fix that. And you're trying to tell me that the only time when I feel comfortable and you're not nearly so threatening and I'm at peace is when I drink, and you're trying to tell me that's a problem? You're trying to tell me I'm an alcoholic? No, I got some problems. I'll admit those problems. Alcohol's not one of them. Finally, I figured out the real problem. Utah's at a high altitude. I mean, it's up in the mountains. It's up there in the mountains. And it's a scientific known fact that people who live at high altitudes for prolonged periods of time have thinner blood than people that live at low altitudes. Well, I've been living in Utah my whole life. I got to have thin blood. You party hard on thin blood, you'll have problems. What I need to do is get to sea level. Thicken up my blood a little bit, then I'd be okay. So I called a buddy, lived in Seattle, at sea level. I was telling him about these problems I had. He said, my God, why don't you get out of there, come up here and take a year off? I said, well, gosh, I don't want to impose on you and your wife and 5 kids. He said, no imposition. I said, I'll be there Tuesday. You know, so I left, went to Seattle. I'm living in Seattle. I got divorced. I'm living in Seattle. I'm not working. I'm just doing a little drinking, working on thickening up my blood. And when you're in that state, the next logical thing you're going to want to do is, you're going to want to gamble, you know. So I started playing. They got poker parlors up there. Started playing poker. And if you're a hot shot and a high flyer like me, then you want to be where the real action is, and that's in the casinos down in Nevada. So I started running down in Nevada, and finally I thought, who am I kidding? I might as well just move to Nevada, fulfill my destiny, be a great poker player. So I moved to Nevada, ended up in Reno, Nevada. I wasn't doing anything. I was just doing a little drinking, playing a little poker, you know, working on thickening up my blood. And got a call from Price. Price was still living in Salt Lake. Boat had moved to Denver. And he said, come over. Boat's coming back to Salt Lake this weekend. Why don't you come over and we'll go out? So I said, fine. Shouldn't have gone. I was doing okay in Reno. I go back over to Salt Lake. We got over there on Friday night. We went out to a place called the One More Time Club, private club, and I met her. She was sitting at the bar. I knew she'd be there, you know. And I fell in love and wanted to take her out on a date. And she couldn't go out Saturday, Sunday. So I had to stay till Monday. I was supposed to leave Sunday. Should have left Sunday. Stayed till Monday. Take this gal out. That Monday was October 6th, 1981. And I take this gal out on a date. We got to dinner, and it was a bad deal. Bad. You know you got a bad deal when you take them out to dinner and they really want to eat, you know. So she's eating and I'm drinking, all right? So I'm a gentleman, so every time I order me a glass of whiskey, I order her a glass of wine. Well, the woman ain't keeping up. It's starting to stack up on her, you know. Now, to keep from being embarrassed, I got to drink my whiskey and drink her wine. Finally, she says, you ready? I said, yeah. So we get in the car. I'm taking her home. I bought a gallon of wine on the way. And we got home and walked in, and I don't know about you, I always had whenever I took a girl out, I always had a little, you know, hidden agenda about what I wanted to do. I thought, well, the hell, they'll catch on, you know. And we walked into her house, and she turned around, and she said, you're going to be mad at me and really hate me. And I said, why? And she said, well, I'm really pretty drunk. I thought, well, hell, you're supposed to be. I mean, that's what we've been trying to do all night. And she said, and I've got to go to work in the morning. I'm going to ask you to leave. I said, son of a... So I grabbed my wine. I wasn't going to leave that. And I stormed out of there and went down. I was staying at Price's. I love newcomers. For one reason, you can find out how sick they are by asking one question. Just one question. Well, where do you live? Because if you knew, we don't live any place, man. We don't. We stay places. That's what we do. We say, well, right now I'm staying with some friends. Oh, right now I'm staying with Mother. She's old, you know. I'm helping her out around the house. That's the way we do it, man. We just stay here till they're tired of us, and we go there and stay till they're tired of us. We go there and stay till we got nowhere else to stay. We come to AA. About the way it works. So I was staying at Price's that night, and knocked on his door. It was 10:30. He opened the door and he says, "It's 10:30. I thought you had a date." And I said, "That damn woman." I went in there and I drank that wine all night, and I said, "Now tomorrow night we're going to go out, and then I'm going to get out of Salt Lake. I should not be drinking here. This high altitude drinking is going to get me in trouble. I got to get out of here." So we went out Tuesday, October 7th, 1981, and started the Joker Club, and then went over to see the fashion show at the Hilton. Got over there about 3. Show started at 6. And I remember the show. I remember the fashion show, and then I blacked out. Blacked out a lot. Blackouts are pretty scary sometimes. Sometimes they're not too bad. Depends on how long you're blacked out. You know? And I blacked out. Came out of my blackout, and they'd found me. cop wanted my driver's license about 2:30 in the morning, and he'd stop me and he wanted my driver's license. Well, I didn't have a driver's license. You know, did that ever keep any of you from driving? No. You just learn to drive more careful. You know, you drive in the right-hand lane so you can turn right when you see the cops. You know. So I was trying to explain to this cop, listen, I'll just leave my car parked right here and I'll walk over there. I won't go anywhere. I'll just leave it parked here and I'll walk over there. And he kept insisting on my driver. Finally, he ran a license plate, found out who I was, arrested me, you know, had a warrant. And this time they were mad at me. They were mad. They would not let, I couldn't even post bond. They were mad. And the reason why is because I had the system down. I knew the deal. You plead not guilty no matter what you're in for. You plead not guilty. And then you get a court date set, and then you get out on bond, or you get out on your own recognizance if you got a job. It was not a major offense. And then you got that court date coming up, and then leave town. You know? And so I had a lot of failure to appear, and they said, no, you can't get out. Because we let you out, you don't come back. So they wouldn't let me out. And I don't like lockup. I don't know anybody that likes lockup. I don't care how tough you are or what kind of tough guy you are. I don't know anybody that when they're in lockup likes lockup. And I don't like it. And I want out. And I'll do or say anything to get out of jail. And I can't get out. And finally a guy came down to see me, not an alcoholic, in a member of AA, but he's a very, very old friend. I grew up with him, Stan. And Stan had a lot of money and knew a lot of people. And Stan said, you got a problem. And I said, yeah, I can't get out. And he said, well, I can get you out. But he said, your problem is you're sick and you need help. I'd known him all my life. And he said, you need help. And the only way I'll get you out is if you promise me you'll go get some treatment. I looked at him and I said, oh, Stan, bless you. You are so right. I don't know what it is. It's just like the devil comes over me and possesses me, and it drags me off into the thing, and I can't control it. I guess I'm an alcoholic, and I don't want to drink, and I want help, but I sure can't get any in here. He said, well, I'll get you out. So I got out of jail. I had no intention of quitting drinking. I wasn't going to quit. Didn't want to quit. I'm just getting out of jail. And I'll do or say anything to get out of jail. And I had to stay with Stan that night. And I got up the next day, threw me the yellow pages, says, you don't know where you want to go, but you got to go to treatment. So I'm looking in the yellow pages, found alcoholism in there, and I found treatment center. And so I called up this treatment center, and I said, I need to, come in for a little treatment. And the gal said, do you have any insurance? No, I don't have any. Hadn't worked for 3.5 years, don't have any insurance. And she said, well, it's $12,000. And I said, I don't want to stay all year. I just want a little treatment. That's it. It was very frustrating, man. I called this one place, it was $18,000. I couldn't believe it. I was so frustrated. I said, honey, if I had $18,000, I wouldn't need your damn treatment. That would have solved any problem I had. Really would have. I finally called this one place. I said, I need to, come in for a little treatment. And the gal said, okay. And I said, well, you need to know something. I don't have any insurance. And she said, okay. And I said, how much? She was a salesperson, right? So she says, well, when you check in here, you get room, board, and therapy, both individual and group therapy, for $9 a day. And then you apply for food stamps when you check in, and we credit the food stamps to that. And then you apply, if you work around here, we pay $1.50 a day, so it nets out to be about $5 a day. I thought, this is it. The thing that excited me about this place, those other places that wanted $12,000, $18,000, they had waiting lists. You had to wait 30 days, 60 days to get in. I thought, at $9 a day, they got to have a year waiting list. This is where I want to go. I can skate on this deal for a year. I said, how long's your waiting list? She said, well, we have a bed for you tonight. I said, I don't need to come tonight. She said, I think you need to come tonight. Now, I got a problem with this place, okay? They got bargain rates, $9 a day, room and board. They can't fill their beds. There's something wrong with this thing. They're high pressure me to check in. There's something wrong. I'm the consumer, I'm right. So I said, honey, listen, I'm not going to argue with you. You make my reservation for Saturday or just forget the whole damn deal. So she made my reservation for Saturday. Only one negative, it was right next to the county jail. I didn't like being that close, to those folks. But anyway, I drove down there Saturday. I parked in the parking lot. I want to see what kind of person goes to a $9 a day jitter joint. So I'm watching them, right? I'm watching them. They're walking in there for hours. I'm watching them go in and out, in and out, in and out. I'm sitting in the parking lot. And, I could tell. Sitting there, I could tell, looking at them, they looked like alcoholics. Everybody going in there looked like an alcoholic. And I wasn't an alcoholic, but it fit my budget. So I checked in. And nothing happened on Saturday. Just filled out a bunch of forms and got my room. Nice place. And Sunday I had my first exposure to Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay, I had no experience with Alcoholics Anonymous. This was my first exposure, and there were 34 of us that attended this meeting. 2 guys from outside came in, chaired the meeting, and I'm sitting there. We sat around tables like this table, and I'm sitting there trying to figure out how you do AA. Because if I can figure out how you do AA, then I can do AA. I'm a real chameleon, right? I can go to a party, and I got to sit back, figure out what kind of party is this. And then I figure out what kind of party it is, and I will do whatever that party's doing. I could literally go to the Democratic convention and the Republican convention and fit, because I'll just blend. I'll just be whatever you want me to be. And so I'm sitting back trying to figure out how to do this, paying attention, and they started down the row. The first guy introduced himself, said, my name's Joe B., and I'm an alcoholic, and I'll pass. Second guy introduced himself, said, my name's Jim S., I'm alcoholic, and I'll pass. I caught on real quick. In AA, you give your first name, last initial, admit to the group you're an alcoholic, and then pass. They had these steps on the wall, and the first one said, admitted we were powerless. And I thought, that's it. There's got to be something magical about admitting you're alcoholic that will just take that burden of alcoholism off your shoulders and sit over there. Fix you. So it got to me, I did it right. I really did. I said, my name's John A. I'm an alcoholic, and I'll pass. Nothing happened. Not a damn thing happened. I thought, well, AA's got nothing to offer me. AA must work for the simple-minded people, not for anybody with any brains, education behind them, for Pete's sakes. When do we get to AA 2? I don't even need to go to this beginner's class. That was on Sunday. Monday, I got to meet my counselor, Dale. Dale's a lovely lady. I'm sitting there with Dale, talking to her. She wanted me to stay 2 months. I said, no, Dale. No, I'm not staying 2 months. I've been here all weekend. Okay? I've talked to these folks. They're alcoholics, Dale. They've told me they were. And I have no reason to doubt them. I don't know whether I'm an alcoholic or not, but they've told me a little bit about what you do here, and you're going to break me down, and you don't need to do that, Dale. I've always been a very open, honest person. Okay, and I've got a great mind. It's like a steel trap, remembers everything. Photographic memory is scary as hell. And I read real fast, was a great student, so I'll tell you what. And I'm busy. I'm too busy to stay 2 months. She said, you're busy? I said, yeah, I'm busy. She said, where are you working? Well, I'm not, but I'm busy, Isn't that true? Alcoholics are the most busy and employed people you ever met. It's incredible how we do that. I don't know. Go Monday. Go to your home group Monday and watch him come in, right? The guy's unemployed. He's got nothing to do all day long but get to a meeting, and he's late. And you say, where have you been? Hell, I've been busy. We're just busy people. I don't know what we do, but we're busy doing it. And I said, I'm too busy to do that. So I said, tell you what, you give me the books, whatever it is you're going to study during that 2-month period. I'll read ahead. You can give me some pop quizzes if you want. And then I'm out of here. Because I'm 2 weeks, I'm out of here. I'm toast in 2 weeks. She listened to all that BS, never said a word. Finally, she looked up and she says, well, we'd better hurry with you. Damn right, you better hurry with me. Tuesday, we got to go to group therapy. God, I love group therapy. Don't you love group therapy? You get to sit around in a circle, right? Sit around in a circle in your chair and talk about the other person's parents. And I caught on real quick to the lingo, you know. Oh, come on, man, get honest. Man, you're in denial. Oh, I love that shit. Haven't seen much good come from it, but it's fun to do, you know. It's good. Good way to spend an hour. Let's see, Wednesday was alcoholic education seminar, and they're showing a movie. Well, I'm not impressed with movies about drug addiction, alcoholism. I'm not today. I find them very boring. But I'm sitting there in my contempt, watching this movie, and the name of the movie was I'll Quit Tomorrow. And it tore me apart. It literally tore me apart. It literally stripped everything that separated me from me. And I could see me for the first time. I related to everything that went on in that movie. It was like they had made a movie of my life and had put it on the screen for everybody to watch. And they were watching my life. I related to it all. And I knew the gig was up because the guy was a drunk. And I could see me like I'd never seen me as I related to that. That was my moment of clarity that the big book talks about, when I knew the gig was up. What happened to me that night is I quit looking for that definition. What is an alcoholic? I later found out in AA, see, we don't have a definition of an alcoholic. I couldn't define an alcoholic for you tonight. I don't know how to define that. What we have in AA is a description of an alcoholic. See, you can't argue with the description. You can argue with the definition. That's why Webster's got 10 definitions for every word. But you can't argue with the description. And it was that description of the alcoholic. The most powerful tool God has given Alcoholics Anonymous is our description of the alcoholic. Because it's that description that seems to have the power that will strip everything that separates the alcoholic from himself. So the alcoholic can see himself for the very first time. And I knew the gig was up. And I knew I was an alcoholic in that moment of clarity. And I stayed in that place 6 weeks. Couldn't stay 2 months. I was too busy to stay 2 months. But I stayed 2 weeks. And when I left there, they said, you need aftercare. But I'm living in Reno, Nevada. Treatment center I'm in, Salt Lake City. They said, that's too far away to come to aftercare, so you better go to AA. Well, I got back to Reno, and I knew two things when I got back to Reno. I knew I was an alcoholic, and I didn't want to drink. And I knew AA had nothing to offer. I mean, because you go, you give your first name, last initial, admit to the group you're an alcoholic, and then pass. That's what every meeting I went to was. But I didn't want to drink, and so the day I got back, I called Alcoholics Anonymous. And I said, my name's John A., and I'm an alcoholic. And the guy said, well, I'm Bruce, I'm an alcoholic. And I said, well, Bruce, I just, got out of treatment over here in Salt Lake, and I'm living here in Reno, and I wanted to call and, report in. Well, I didn't know that's how they put you on computer, come get you if you don't show up. So he said, well, I'm glad you did. He said, you want to go to a meeting tonight? And it was Thursday. I said, yeah, I can go to a meeting tonight. First night in town, I guess I ought to come meet some other alcoholics. And he said, well, we have a men's stag meeting, Hotel Riverside Casino, 3rd floor Sierra room. I said, okay, I'll be there. I'll be there a little early in case you want to meet me. And he said, well, I won't be there, but there'll be some guys there. I said, okay. So I show up 8:15, 15 minutes early. First resentment in Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd called them, told them I was coming, made my reservation. No reception. They didn't look like they knew I was coming. Just some guys sitting around drinking coffee, waiting for a meeting. So I got my coffee, sat down. Pretty soon this old guy named Red chaired the meeting. Red looked like an alcoholic. He did. So he's chairing the meeting. I'm sitting back watching them, and I couldn't believe it. These guys weren't passing. They were talking. I don't know what they're talking about. Have not a clue what they're talking about. It was not the stuff we talked about in treatment. I said, I'm very disappointed. I said, half through that meeting, it became real apparent to me. These guys have not been to treatment. Okay? I mean, they're not talking about the disease of alcoholism. I said, halfway through that meeting, nobody mentioned we got an XY chromosome deficiency. I thought, how are they going to stay sober? Not knowing that. So it got to me, I thought I'd help. I said, I did it right. I said, my name's John A., and I'm an alcoholic. And I qualified. I said, I just got out of treatment over here in Salt Lake. And I have the latest, most up-to-date medical and psychological information. Second resentment in AA. Red cut me off. I said, thank you, John. Went on to the next guy. I could. That son of a bitch is jealous. You know? I know stuff he don't know. That's the problem. He's got the antiquated stuff he's talking about. I got the current stuff. After me, some guys come up and shook my hand. They said, "We hope you come back." Hell, I'll be back. They need me. I'll be back. Now, Chuck Chamberlain used to always say, "Every man's my teacher." Some people teach me what to do. Some people teach me what not to do. Okay? Keep in mind, most of what I share from the podium is what not to do. Okay? Because I did it all wrong. I did it all wrong. I don't know where I was when they said 90 meetings, 90 days. No, that's not the way. Not the way I did it. What I did is I went to one meeting a week. I'll go down to my men's stag meeting every Thursday. They will not let me talk. But I'm going to wear them out. I'm younger than they are. They'll die. Now, let me tell you what happens when you go to one meeting a week if you haven't tried that. Okay? This will save you the time of doing that. They told me in treatment, they said, you know, if you don't drink, you'll feel better. Pretty simple. Don't drink, you'll feel better. They didn't tell me what that meant. Okay? If you don't drink, you will feel better. You will feel all the pain, all the anger, all the resentment. You're going to feel that shit a whole lot better. You know? So here I am walking around Reno feeling better, going nuts. I mean, sobriety was like watching paint dry. It was just boring and long. What are we going to do till... Every Thursday I'm down there Christmas Eve was Thursday. And I'm down there Thursday night. It's Christmas Eve. And my men's stag meeting. They said, now tomorrow's Christmas. Over at the Dryers Club, Skid Row Clubhouse, we got Christmas dinner if you have nowhere to go, free of charge. So I thought, great, I got nowhere to go. So I go over to Dryers Club Christmas Day, Friday. I ate, and I'm sitting there drinking a cup of coffee, smoking a cigarette. Here came this guy over to see me. Not my kind of guy. He's an old guy. Fat old guy. With a big nose and real funny hair. Just funny. It was weird hair. Weird hair. Nothing hip, slick, and cool about him at all. Not my kind of guy. His name was Don. He came over to talk to me, and we're chatting, and after about 5 or 10 minutes, I'm listening to Don talk. It became clear. Don had not been to treatment. So I start to tell Don this wealth of information I've got about alcoholism. Funny look comes on his face, and he said, do you want to go to a meeting tonight? I said, well, Don, hell, it's Friday. I go Thursdays over here to Men's Stag meeting. He said, we got a meeting every night in Reno. So I thought, well, I'd heard something in that month about spirituality in those meetings. They kept talking about spirituality. I thought, well, it's a spiritual program. It's Christmas. Christmas Day. Spiritual program. I can go twice this week. Won't hurt. So here this guy I don't like comes by and gets me, takes me out to the state hospital on Friday. They got a meeting out there at 7 o'clock. We got to the state hospital, love it. Walked in there, they give me a raffle ticket. And they have a raffle. And they raffle off a big book, just like as Bill sees it. Or some other AA-approved literature. So I walked in the meeting, there were women in the meeting. I couldn't believe it. First meeting I've been to with women in the meeting. I didn't know they were in AA. You know? Immediately adopt that as my home group. It was great. It was great. So they're having some meeting, and I don't know what they're talking about, because although I have this great mind, and I read real fast, okay, I forgot to get a big book. I thought, this is it. I'm going to win the raffle. I'm going to win this is going to be God's gift to me this Christmas Day. So I'm praying for my book. Prayed all hour for my book. By the time the meeting's over, the book's mine. I mean, God can give that book to nobody but me. Nobody's been praying all hour like I've been praying all hour for the big book. The book's mine, and I want it. So I went to raffle off the big book. Third resentment, Alcoholics Anonymous. Some little old gray-haired lady, 25 years sober, wins my book. What you doing? Wins my book. So I'm walking out of there. Before I get out of there, that little lady comes up and gives me that book. That's where I got my big book. And I used to say that I took that book home and that night and read it from cover to cover. Okay, so if you ever get hold of one of those old tapes where I said that, please understand this, that when I said that, hell, I believed it. I really did. You know, those tapes will haunt you, won't they? Yeah. Then I got involved in a big book study, and you know what I found out? They got chapters in that book you wouldn't believe. Wouldn't believe. They got a chapter in that book, chapter to the wives. Well, you know, I wasn't a wife. Didn't have a wife. Didn't want a wife. Didn't read that chapter. Okay? They got a chapter in there to the employer. I wasn't an employee. Didn't read that chapter. They got a chapter in there called We Agnostics. Well, I wasn't agnostic. I knew God real well. Didn't read that. Well, if you just read, you know, chapter 3 and chapter 5, you can read that in a night. It won't take you that long to read it. So I read. Next day, this guy I don't like calls me up, comes and gets me, takes me to another meeting. Every day, this guy's coming by my place, picking me up, taking me to another meeting. I'll be eternally grateful to Don for doing that. Eternally grateful. Sometimes in AA, in our group, we'll see somebody come in for a month, 2 months, and then we don't see him for a while. Somebody will say, hey, anybody seen old Charlie lately? And then some guy practicing tough love will say, hey, Charlie knows where we are. If he wants it, let him come get it. Right? I'm glad Don didn't believe in that nonsense. I'm glad Don understood that the very first 12-step call. The only reason we're here tonight is because the sober alcoholic called the drunk. It wasn't the other way around. Bill Wilson was sober, and to stay sober, he called a drunk because he knew that way he could stay sober. It wasn't the drunk looking to get sober because Dr. Bob had tried everything and had given up. And Bill Wilson made the phone call, and he was sober. And I'm glad Don understood that. See, sometimes we don't know. You can say 90 meetings in 90 days. Don't hear it. Don't know I'm supposed to go every day. I didn't. Till Don came by and picked me up, took me to a meeting. Took me every day. He was a coordinator of intergroup. So I was down to intergroup during the day, drinking coffee, meeting other drunks. I'm going to a meeting every night. Interesting thing happened. I not only feel better, but I feel good. And I hadn't felt those two things in years at the same time. I'm feeling better and good, and the only thing I'm doing different is going to a meeting every night. And I'm feeling better and good. And I'm down at intergroup meeting those guys, and it was New Year's Eve, a week later, Thursday. And I'm down at intergroup, talking to Don, getting ready to go to my men's stag meeting Thursday night. The phone rings. I picked it up. It was Glenn. Glenn was 17 years old, wanted to know how to stay sober New Year's Eve. I said, why? I mean, God, he's 17. It's New Year's Eve. You know, I mean, stay after one more night at least. Don grabbed that phone away from me right there. So when he passed the rule at central office, you had to have 6 months or more sobriety to answer the phone. My fourth resentment in AA. Don talked to him. I don't know what he said. I went to get coffee, gave him his phone number, didn't give him my phone number. Next day, Don calls me and says, hey, Glenn stayed sober, wants to go to a meeting. I thought, great, 12-step work. So we get Glenn, Don comes by, gets me. We go by a week, Glenn, we're taking him out to the state hospital where I got my big book. And we're going out there, and I don't know about you, but I've always found it real important to prepare these people for AA. Hey, you just don't take them. So I'm telling Glenn all about, I said, Glenn, there are women in AA. There are going to be women in the meeting. Your first meeting you get to go to with women in the meeting. We're going to have this raffle. They're going to raffle off a big book. God loves you. You'll win the big book. Don didn't say a word. Don just drove to the meeting, you know. Now, see, Don knew something else. See, he knew nobody remembers their first meeting. They don't. You can say you do, you don't. You know, it's amazing. Really, in fact, I'll sit there. You'll be in a meeting, and it'll be a step 1 or 2 meeting, maybe a step 2 meeting, and somebody's talking a lot about God, and there's a newcomer there, and then somebody will speak up, and usually the person that says this has got about 2 to 3 years, and he says, well, I'm glad at my first meeting they didn't talk a lot about God, or I'd have been gone. I want to say, where would you have gone? I mean, you're here because you have somewhere else to be? And what's really funny is when you've been around a while, and some guy will say that, you'll think, wait a minute, I was at your first meeting. And we talked a lot about God. But see, they didn't hear it. Because you can't hear it till you can hear. So it really doesn't matter what you say. They'll hear what they're supposed to hear and not hear what they're not supposed to hear. So anyway, I'm telling Glenn all about this stuff. We get to the meeting, we get in there, and we get our raffle tickets, and I'm busy praying. I'm praying for Glenn. I thought, this is it, man. If Glenn could win the book, that'll be proof God's working in his life. He'll stay sober, and I will have a 100% success rate. Just like Schick, you know. So, then at the meeting, they went to have the raffle off the big book. I won the big book. It's the only thing I've ever won. Don Jeremy says, see how it works? I said, yeah, I wrote in it, gave it. That's where Glenn got his big book. Okay? Glenn's sober today, by the way. Because I gave him that big book. That's why. Now, that little experience early in my sobriety taught me a lot. Because it taught me how God works. Because God works through people. Whenever God works, it's always a win-win situation. There are always two winners when God works. Because He works through people. See, I could have won the big book that first night. There had been one winner, me. But that little old lady won by being able to share with me. And I won by being able to receive from her. A week later, two winners. I won by being able to share with Glenn, and Glenn won by being able to receive from me. See, God works through people. By working through people, He gets twice the bang. He gets twice the deal for the same effort. That's why He works through people. It also taught me how AA works. Because AA is one drunk sharing with another. And when that happens, that's the magic. And there are two winners. The drunk doing the sharing and the drunk doing the receiving when that happens. I've told that story hundreds and hundreds of times. And every time that I tell that story, I remember my moment of clarity. I remember it like it happened yesterday when I knew the gig was up. I'm convinced everybody here tonight that's sober has had that moment of clarity when you knew the gig was up. I'm as equally convinced that those that come here for a while and are out there drinking and dying tonight had that moment of clarity. What's the difference between those of us that stayed and those that are out there drinking and dying? I think it's pretty simple. In Alcoholics Anonymous, what we do is we keep that moment alive. We keep it alive. Because as I've shared that story with you, and I've remembered my moment, and I've won by remembering my moment, what have you thought about? You've thought about your moment when you knew the gig was up. And when I'm on that side of the podium and you're up here sharing your story with me of what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today, and you remember your moment. By the way, it's the perfect program for people whose basic problem is that they're selfish, self-centered, isn't it? Because as you're telling me about your moment, what am I thinking about? I'm thinking about mine. What about me? I did that. I'm remembering my moment. In Alcoholics Anonymous, we keep that moment alive. And there's nowhere else that you can do that. There's no other therapy on earth that you can keep that moment alive in. None. And my trip in Alcoholics Anonymous has been an incredible trip. I moved to Dallas in February of '83 from Reno, Nevada. And I moved to Dallas, went back in the insurance business, and it was been an incredible ride. Got married, got divorced. They told me that. When I first came, a lot of times guys come, because they think they'll get her back. And my sponsor said, well, don't worry about her. He said, she may come back, she may not. But if she doesn't, it's okay, because some of these guys are married to these gals, and they screw up, and you can get one of theirs. So that's pretty true. So it all came together, and it's been an incredible ride, and one that I won't forget. This is going to be an incredible conference. I want to share just a couple more things with you, and then I'll wrap it up, because it'll be great. And you've got a great slate of speakers in front of you. And I want to thank the committee for asking me to come and share my moment with you and be able to participate in the Roundup this year. About 3.5 years ago, when I got divorced, it was very painful. It was very painful. And it's like my sponsor told me, early on in sobriety, we're talking about relationships, and he said, hey, well, let me tell you about relationships. A relationship will take you where alcohol never did. And that's really true. So it was very painful, and I was hurting over it. And they told me, when you're in that kind of situation, throw yourself into working with others. And there were a lot of things going on at that period of my life that I didn't understand. I'd been sober, I guess, 9 years sober, 8 years sober, and I didn't understand what was going on. And I was totally off the beam in a lot of areas, and they said, you need to throw yourself into working with others. And so I did that. I started to attend a lot of meetings, and I started to go up and talk to newcomers a lot and introduce newcomers. I started to sponsor a lot of new guys. And they were coming out of treatment centers. And they would come up to me, and they started asking me a lot of stuff that I didn't know anything about. And they would come up and they would say, I need to get with you and talk to you about setting some boundaries. And I said, I thought you rented. What, you got a fence you need to put up? I don't understand what boundaries you're talking about. He'd say, well, I come from a real dysfunctional family. And I never learned to set boundaries. And I have a lot of issues that I need some help with. And they'd come to me and we'd talk about that, and it all sounded pretty good. They had a lot of neat books they brought with them that they'd got. And I bought into some of that stuff and was listening to them. I didn't know anything about it, but I'm letting them do what they've learned to do. And my life kept getting squirrelier and squirrelier. And I was meeting with my sponsor, and I was talking to my sponsor about it. And he said, well, how many guys you sponsor? I said, 14. He said, any of them getting well? I said, no, and I'm getting sick. And he said, well, let me ask you a question. I said, what? And he said, are you passing on to them the same program that was passed on to you? It cut me like a knife, because I wasn't. And I had to go to those 14 guys and make amends, because I had robbed them of the opportunity to have the same program of Alcoholics Anonymous that was passed on to me. And knowing that they'd have to either do it the way the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that was outlined for me was outlined, or they'd have to find someone else to sponsor. I loved them, but we were going to have to do it this way, because that's the only way I know how to get well. See, because not drinking's not the problem. It's not the problem. It's easier to get to AA, and it's a bitch getting here. Most of us don't. But it's easier to get here than it is to stay here. And if you don't believe that, go look at your birthday board. And you'll have more 1- and 2-year-olds than you do 5 to 50. Why is that? Where do they all go? It's that way in every place I've been in the country and in Canada. It's easier to get here than stay here. And I don't want anybody leaving this meeting and not know the program of AA that was passed on to me, because it's my responsibility. When they say it's a responsibility to reach out, whenever somebody wants to get sober, it's our responsibility to reach out, that AA always be there. It's my responsibility to put that program that was passed on to me out there. And I don't want anybody leaving, because the program that was passed on to me doesn't say anything about issues. It doesn't say a damn word that I have to deal with any issues. In fact, it says you can't deal with issues. If I could have dealt with them, I'd have done it 13 years ago and wouldn't have to be here today. I'm here because I can't. And there's a big difference between that philosophy and learning to deal with issues, no matter what the issue is, no matter what the problem is. See, in 1935, there was a radical change of therapy. Pre-1935, for alcoholism, they said this. Before 1935, they said, hey, if we can change the way you think, then you will feel different. And when you feel different, you will act different. That was therapy before 1935 for alcoholism. That's still therapy today, by the way. We'll find out why you think the way you do, and then we'll change that. And then when we change your thinking, you will feel different. When you feel different, you will act different. 1935, Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob changed it radically. They said, hey, we don't care what you think. Hell, we know you're crazy. So you think all that stuff you want. We don't care. But go do this. Take this action, and they even laid out 12 things we could go do. And do this. Think that all you want. But go do this while you're thinking about that. Go do this. And when you change your action, then you will feel different. And when you feel different, you will think different. Is that not a 180-degree turn? The think, feel, do didn't work in 1935, and it doesn't work for alcoholism in 1993. AA says, let's do this, and you will feel different, and you'll act different. I don't care. You don't know how to say no? You want to set some boundaries? I'll tell you everything you need to know about setting boundaries. Yes cannot mean yes until no means no. Boom, we just saved that. You know what that means? Yes cannot mean yes until no means no. Yes has no power. Doesn't mean a thing until no means no. My yes to this girl doesn't mean a thing, does it? Until my no to this girl means something. Till I can say no to this person, my yes to this one doesn't mean a thing. How are you going to learn to say no? Go keep all your yeses. Go keep every commitment you make. And you'll learn to say no. You know? But I usually use yes as a means to end the conversation. You know? I really do. We'll be sitting right after the meeting. There'll be groups of us get together, 6, 7, 8 of us. We'll get together and we decide, where are we going to go have coffee? Oh, that'll take 20 minutes to decide where we're going to go have coffee. And then we'll all say, let's go to JoJo's or Denny's. Let's go to Denny's. Okay, we'll go to Denny's. Then we all leave. We take 8 cars. And then half don't show up. Why? Because I was just tired of talking about it, so I said yes. You know, I was just tired of talking about it, so I said yes. You go keep all your yeses and you'll learn to say no. And I don't know any other way to do it. But it's the action that must change. It's never them. Never. It's always been me. I wish I could be a victim. God, it would make it easy. But the problem is that I remember one time, okay, we're going to step this up. One time, I got stood up on a date. I dated this gal for 1.5 years. Now, it got a little rocky toward the end. Then she stood me up. Can you believe she'd do that? Unbelievable that she'd do that. And then I had to take a look at it. On our first date, on our very first date, when I took her home, she said, I have a confession to make. I said, what's that? And she said, I stood someone up to go out with you tonight. You know what my mind said? My mind said, hell, I don't blame you. I'd have done that too to go out with me. And then I'm shocked 1.5 years later when she stands me up. She told me what she was. People tell us what they are, and we buy into it, you know. It's like the scorpion and the turtle. Y'all heard that story. Scorpion and the turtle, they meet at the creek, at the river, and the scorpion says, hey, give me a ride across the river on your back. Scorpion says, or the turtle says, you crazy? You're a scorpion. You'll sting me. And the scorpion says, don't be silly. If we're out there in the river and I sting you, you die. I die with you. Why would I do that? Makes sense to the turtle. So he says, climb on. So Scorpion gets on his back. They get halfway across the river. Scorpion stings him. Turtle says, you crazy? Why did you do that? How could you do that? Scorpion says, hey, you knew what I was when you picked me up. And I do that a lot. Don't listen to the sponsor saying that's a scorpion. You're going to get stung. Don't do that. I'm not a victim, see. I do it. I'm the one that made the decision to continue that relationship. And I do that in every relationship, every business, as I said, every relationship, whether it be male or female, that I've got. Never have been the victim. Never have. It's me that must change. And you know what the real deal is? Is that I can't change. I can't think myself into changing. I can't. I've got to find a power. That's the program that's passed on to me. finding a power greater than myself that will solve all my problems. And that's the only purpose of the big book, is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself that will solve all your problems. Now, maybe that doesn't work. Maybe there is no God. Maybe it's just a fluke. See, all that only applies if you really believe in God. But maybe He doesn't live. Maybe it's just a coincidence that we're here. It's like in my home group. My home group in Dallas, Texas, is Dallas North. And I met my home group several years ago as a birthday night. There were 200 people at that party, and after the party, Joanne came up to me and gave me a slip of paper from a gal in San Antonio. She said, this lady called from San Antonio. Her son's been drinking for 2 weeks, and he wants some help. Can you help her son? And I said, well, why is she calling? Why isn't he calling? She said, because he's been drinking, he's disoriented, doesn't know. He could remember his mom's phone number, but couldn't find AA's phone number. Could you go help him? And she said, I went and called her on the phone. I told her who I was, and she said, yeah, my son needs some help. He's suicidal. He's got a gun, and he needs some help. Can you go help my son? So I called up her son, and he was living in Dallas. Told him who I was, asked me if he needed some help. He said, yeah. He said, I called, but I'm just too messed up. I've been drinking and drugging for 2 weeks, and I'm too disoriented to find AA's number or talk to anybody, but I need some help. And I said, well, I'll come see you. What's your address? He said, oh, you'll never find it. You'll never find my address. The street's only 2 blocks long, and I don't know how to tell you to get here. It's hard to find. You'll never find it. 3 million people, it's hard to find. And I said, give me your address and we'll find you. And he said, I don't know. I said, give me your damn address. And he lived on a street called Dome Street. Now, I've told this to every group. We got hundreds of groups in Dallas, and I've told every group in Dallas. And when I tell them that story, I ask them, does anybody know where Dome Street is? In 8 years, nobody has known where Dome Street is. Okay? It's only 2 blocks long, small street. See, I know where Dome Street is. I know right where Dome Street is. I have a client that lives on Dome Street. He not only lives on Dome Street, he is the literal next-door neighbor of the guy that was making the phone call. That's just a coincidence, isn't it? There's nothing to this God deal in AA, is there? Just a coincidence. You know the odds of that? The odds of a lady in San Antonio calling information wanting AA. They give her Dallas North's phone number. We got 150 groups in Dallas. They picked Dallas North to give her. There are 200 people at Dallas North. And Joanne picks me to give that 12-step call to. And at that time, I was only like 3.5 years sober. And she picked... You know the odds of all that happening? And I know where Dome Street is. And I've talked to hundreds of drunks in 8 years, and nobody knows where Dome Street is. You know the odds of that happening? I'm a gambler, right? Oh, yeah. I want to bet on that. That'll happen a lot. That'll happen a lot. It's like I'm going out to California a few years ago. The plane left at 8:30. I got out there at 8 o'clock. There was a big sign up on the thing at DFW saying the flight's been postponed an hour. So no problem. I didn't have to be there till 1 o'clock. So I got my coffee, smoked a cigarette, sat down. They came on at 9 o'clock and they said, no, the flight's been canceled. We can't fix the plane. But there's a plane leaving 2 gates down that has some standby. Well, 50 of us run down there to get on standby. There are only like 10 seats on standby, and there are 50 of us. I'm the second to the last guy to get on the plane. I go back to the smoking section. So when you could smoke, there's 1 seat in the smoking section, right next to the window, and right next to that seat is this good-looking gal in a red dress. I'll never forget that red dress. God is working in my life today, you know. So I sat down there, and there's a bad deal about because she was a talker. Had a high-pitched voice. I have not had enough coffee for this woman. I mean, finally the plane takes off, and she shuts up. She pulls out her needle point. She's needle pointing. I look over, and she's needle pointing the Serenity Prayer. My turn. I said, what are you doing? She said, well, I'm needle pointing. I said, I can see that, but what is that you're needle pointing? She got real embarrassed, and she finally held up and says, well, they call this the Serenity Prayer. And I said, you one of those religious freaks? And she said, no. And then she starts going real fast on her needle point. She says, but I am trying to lead a spiritual life. I said, really? She said, yeah. She's going 100 miles an hour on that thing, you know. I said, you really do that fast. And she said, my mom told me I shouldn't do this. I said, well, why? She said, well, I have a compulsive personality. I said, you're kidding. She said, no. Now her hands are getting sweaty, and she's going 1,000 miles an hour at that needle point. I thought, I got to stop this gal before she breaks a finger. I said, if that's the serenity prayer, and you're trying to lead this spiritual life, you got that compulsive personality. I said, you must be a friend of Bill Wilson's. Boy, she stopped, sighed, and looked at me, and she said, yeah. Are you? I said, no. She got a blank look on her face, I said, he died a long time before I got sober, Come to find out, this gal had 2 years sober. She had 2 years sober, and this was her first trip outside of Dallas in sobriety. And she had also had her first drunk dream the night before, and she was scared to death, was running late to call her sponsor, couldn't call her sponsor, and she was going out to California for 2 weeks and was just petrified. We had a great 3-hour meeting going out there. Talked for 3 hours. I shared some experience with her about my drunk dreams and gave her some numbers out there, people I know. She cried a little bit. I cried a little bit. She said, I was sitting up in non-smoking. I've been trying to quit smoking. And I was just so nervous. I moved back here. Can you believe God had me move back here to sit by you? I said, hell, he canceled my whole flight to get me to come over here and sit by you, So, now, that's just a coincidence, isn't it? There ain't nothing to this God deal in AA. God's not really, since He works through people, God's not really going to put people in our lives with the solution for our problems, is He? That's just a coincidence, isn't it? Like December 1990. I was at a little teeny conference called the Border Conference. It's right on the border of Mexico and Texas, in Del Rio, Texas. Small conference. About 100 people attend the conference. And they invited me to come down there and share. So I'm down there. Saturday, you meet everybody at that smaller conference, and I met this little gal. She had Dottie E. from Connecticut. And I said, Dottie, what are you doing in Del Rio, Texas, from Connecticut? She said, well, I'm on my way to see my husband. We've been driving down there, got the kids. He's in San Diego. He's in the Navy. And I'm on my way to see him, and we ended up here in Del Rio today, and I called AA, and they told me about this conference. So I came. She'd been sober 6 years. And I said, well, welcome to Texas. So I spoke that night, and when I got through speaking, she'd heard my story, so she knew I was from Utah. She came up and she said, do you have any, you sobered up in Utah? I said, yeah. She said, well, do you have any relatives in Orem, Utah? And I said, well, I grew up in Orem, Utah. She said, are you related to Mark and Betty Jo? I said, well, they're my parents. And then Dottie started crying. Told me what her last name was. She said, Tommy's my husband. And see, Tommy is my first cousin. I grew up with Tommy. We were best running buddies when we were kids until Tommy turned 18 and then joined the Navy. And I hadn't talked to Tommy for 20 years. And Dottie and Tommy met in Alcoholics Anonymous, had no idea Tommy was in AA. They met and got married when they were 2 years sober, and Tommy got drunk when he was 3 years sober and has not been back. And Dottie was on her way to San Diego to see Tommy, to serve him with divorce papers. And we called Tommy that night, and he was drunk. Tommy will have, in August, had 2 years. That's just a coincidence, isn't it? You know the odds of that? I mean, she's in Connecticut, he's in San Diego, I'm in Dallas, and we meet in Del Rio after 20 years. A sister-in-law I've never known. That's just a coincidence, isn't it? God's not really involved. Do you know the timing of that? When she's traveling cross country, her timing with 4 kids, that she ends up in Del Rio the day I talk, that's just a coincidence, isn't it? By the way, I don't want to leave that alone because Tommy called me a couple months ago and was drunk, But at least we're talking. And I know that I know where he is, and I know what's in store for him, and I've got a beautiful relationship with some nieces and nephews I never knew. Lone Star Conference, 1989. I'm in the midst of my divorce, and I'm in a lot of pain. And it's Dallas, Texas. It's my local conference. 3,500 people, big conference. 3,500 people attend that conference. And I go every year, and I didn't want to go in '89 because I was in a lot of pain. And first thing I do is I seek isolation when I'm in a lot of pain. And my sponsor says, it's your conference, you go. You've never missed one, you go. So I go down to that conference, Lone Star Conference, and I'm a wallflower, man. I'm standing against the wall. I'm not talking to anybody. I don't want to be there. But I'm there because my sponsor told me to go, and I do what he tells me to do. And a guy comes up and introduces himself and says, John? I said, yeah. And he introduced himself, and he said, I wanted to thank you. I said, what for? And he said, 3 years ago you were given the steps at my home group, and I was new, and I got a lot out of it. And I said, well, you're welcome. He said, well, the thing I want to thank you for is when I was 6 weeks sober, I went over to Bossier City to the horse races with some drinking buddies I used to drink with. Shouldn't have gone. I was only 6 weeks sober, should not have gone, but they invited me to go, and I went. And after the first race, I wanted to drink, and every fiber of my body said drink, and I came down the escalators heading for the bar, hit the bottom of the escalators, looked up, and there you were. And I couldn't believe it. And you were laughing and cracking up another guy, and I followed you. See where you were sitting. And you stayed through that whole race day, and every time I wanted to drink, I came down to check on you, and you were there, and I didn't have to drink, and I got 3 years sober. And I wanted to come up and thank you. And I said, well, why didn't you come up and say something to me? And he was a very shy man, a gentleman, but very shy man. And he said, hell, it's taken me 3 years to get the courage to do that. I couldn't have done it 6 weeks sober. And you know the miracle of that? See, I've only been to Bossier City 3 times in my life. I don't go there like every week. 3 times in my life. You know the miracle of that? That's my miracle. Because you see, I needed that guy that night. The night I'm at Lone Star Conference and I'm hurting, I don't want to be there. I needed him to come see me as much as he needed me in Bossier City. Maybe more. You know the odds of that? Here you got a guy that is so shy that can't come up and talk to me for 3 years, and for some reason that night he has the courage to come over and talk to me. And he picks me out of 3,500 people when I'm standing against the wall. And I need him that night. And he saved my life. He didn't even know it. And I share that because I know that in this meeting tonight, there's some people that are in a ton of pain. Sober, doesn't matter whether you're sober 1 month or whether you're sober 10 years. You can be in pain. You can be hurting. And when I was there, you don't know. Don't have a clue whether God's really going to take care of you. It's like you've crawled over to the edge of the precipice and you're looking into the abyss and you're scared to death and you don't know whether God is really there or anything that's going on. And if that's the case, then you need to know this, that tonight more than ever I know. And if you need to borrow my God until you can find the power of your own, then you go ahead and do it. Because my God today is willing to go to any lengths to see that you make it. And is totally dedicated to our success. Can you imagine having a power that loves you enough that will go to any lengths to see that you make it? And his total dedication is to our success. Because that's the reality of my God today. And I'm grateful that y'all let me come up and share that with you. Appreciate it.